We use the term mommies loosely to define people who are raising children and working and contributing to the world and need all the tech help that they can get. We do this here at CES because there are the people here who need to hear from us, whether it's the Samsung or Lenovo or Whirlpool or Sanyo or products can be made better. And one of the great things we have going as MommyTECH, I like to say, mommies always gave advice to each other, best pediatrician, best playground, best outfit, best place to go. Well, mommies now have the megaphone of megaphones, and you better believe it's impacting the entire world and changing lives and products and the way we get treated and serviced. So with that, I am going to turn you over to my world's first favorite moderator, depending on who I'm introducing, my good friend, Andrea Smith from ABC. There is nobody better to take you through the afternoon and meet some of the talent that you'll be meeting and hear these insights. Thank you for your time, your patience. Tonight at the Fashion Show Mall at 6:30, we will celebrate surviving CES with an over-the-top salute to embedded fashion and our Cappy Awards for Kids at Play Interactive. So thank you so much, and here's Andrea.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're all here. And so I have two things because I'm just this way. I'm a radio person. I live on deadlines. I have a stopwatch. I'm timing everybody here. 45 minutes, that's it. Warren's gone with his horn there, but I'll let you know. And the second thing is please do turn off your cell phones because everybody prepares for their panels and it would be really nice to be able to enjoy them. Robin told you all why we're here, so I'm going to get to it because it's David's fault that we're late. So we're never my fault, I'm always on time. So I want to start with the secrets of the business of mommy bloggers and find out what moms and brands know about each other. And I love this panel because we've got mommy bloggers up here who represent two completely diverse ends of the business. And I can't wait to hear all these secrets and tips. So here's your moderator, Lori Schwartz, the Chief Technology Catalyst of McCann Worldgroup.
Thank you, Andrea. We really do have a fantastic panel, so we're going to dive right in. And my role at McCann Worldgroup, which is a large Marcom company, is to look at new technologies, new innovations, new ideas, and bring them to the attention of my agency as well as our brands. And you'd have to have been sleeping at the wheel in the last couple of years not to really see the fantastic power behind the mom and the uber influencer that moms plus writing plus technology all circling around each other have become. So what we decided to do at McCann was really look into this space a little deeper by doing some proprietary research. So we're going to get into that research in a minute, but I wanted to kick off the session by just introducing our mommy bloggers. So the first mom blogger that we have is Stacy DeBroff, who is the CEO and founder of Mom Central Consulting, momcentral.com. And Mom Central offers support and advice for moms through forums, product reviews, articles, and new mom information. And we'll get to hear from Stacy. And I got to speak to all of these mom bloggers before the panel, and I have to tell you that I want to be best friends with all of them because they're so smart and really sitting on the edge of a fantastic space. Our next mom blogger is Beth Blecherman, who's the founder of TechMamas, and you can also track all of these ladies at Mom Central and at TechMama. Beth's personal blog is techmamas.com, and she's also a technologist at Cool Mom Tech. And all of this will be available for you online later as well. And then last but not least is Rebecca Levy. And Rebecca Levy, I love this, is Queen Bee and co-founder of the recently launched kidsviews.com, which is a community of user-generated videos by and for tweens, and we're going to get into that, where they write reviews and comment about products. And she also writes about life and parenting at Blogging Angels and also at Mom Blog Mag. So to kick all of this off, to go up a notch from mom bloggers, we've been doing some great, right now, qualitative research around moms in general and sort of defining that uber influencer and that mom maven. So I want to bring up right now, or actually sit right now and present to you Laura Simpson, who is our global director for McCann's Truth Central. And McCann Truth Central is a global thought leadership unit dedicated to discovering and illuminating consumer and business truths. So Laura's going to take us through this complex but exciting world of moms and help us define that maven mom who may indeed become a world-famous mom blogger. Laura? You can stay there or whatever you like to do. You want to stay there? Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. How do I get my charts on there?
Can you switch to her? There we go.
There we go. And is that working?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, good. So yes, as Lori said, I'm just going to give you a kind of 10-minute whistle-stop tour of some qualitative research that we did here in the US at the end of last year, looking at influential mums, or maven mums as we've defined them. So they self-defined in our qualitative groups. We asked questions around, do other mums come to you and ask you for advice and ideas? So the mums who said, yes, I'm an influential mum, they came along to our groups and we interviewed them about all kinds of different subjects, in terms of how they feel about being a mum today, the role of technology. So I'm just going to take you through a few interesting themes that emerged from our research. But first of all, I just want to talk to you about the different type of maven mums that we came across in our groups. Because essentially, I guess that all maven mums were pretty much the same, or became mavens for the same reasons. But actually, I came across 4 distinct types of mavens in our groups. So first of all, I think I found what I'm calling the uber maven, or actually the sort of queen bee mom. And actually, these were the women who, even before they became mums, were the kind of trendsetters in their friendship groups. So actually, these were already the women that other mums, the other women came to and said, what's the best bar to go to around here, or where did you buy that top? So these are the kind of super networked, hyper organized, trend-setting mums. They're the kind of uber mavens, and actually those are the mums who are most likely to become mummy bloggers. So the women that we met who fell into this category either already had blogs or were thinking about starting a blog. Then we had our experienced mavens, and actually these were the mums who just happened to have children first in their friendship group, or they had more children than anyone else in their friendship group. So these were the mums who sort of had 4 or 5 children. And actually, because they're the kind of been there, done that mums, this is the first mum that you pick the phone up to when your child's got a temperature or you've got a question about which stroller to buy. So these are the kind of experienced mavens. Then we have the specialist mavens. So these are the women who develop a kind of specialism in a specific area. And that could be to do with a passion. So you're a kind of particularly creative person, and then you become a mom, and you're the kind of craft mom. You know the kind of best craft activities to organize with your kids, or the best kind of party decoration ideas. Or you might be someone who has a child with an illness like severe asthma or ADHD, which means you've done a huge amount of research on that area. So other mums will come to you and ask you for your advice and expertise. So there are specialist mavens. And then finally, we have our social mavens. These are the women who love all things social. They've enthusiastically embraced Facebook, mobile, Twitter, and they just love being continuously connected, sharing ideas, thoughts, trends, reviews. So those are our kind of the 4 layers of mavens that we came across in our groups. So really, I think the brand opportunity here is to understand that there are different types of mavens. Their motivations differ, and develop strategies for how we can connect with these different types of women and help them to influence other mums, because they really are the key to mums in general. The second theme that I thought was quite interesting from our focus groups, I'm calling joined versus judged, or playdate politics. The first thing to say is I think genuinely technology has in many ways created strong and empowered communities of women. particularly amongst mum bloggers, actually. So I'm just going to read to you this quotation from a blogger in LA. She said, one blogging mother who I met on Twitter when I first moved to this neighborhood took me under her wing, and I was almost like her blog protege. She showed me the PR and marketing opportunities. And actually, from all of the bloggers that we spoke to in our telephone interviews, they all said, I'm part of this community, this network. We share strategies, we share ideas. But not just for bloggers, for mums in general, you can find a community online these days. However, the other side to that coin, we did an exercise in our focus groups where we gave mums pictures, and it was a visual of sort of two mums talking to each other, and we gave them a speech bubble and a thought bubble, and they could write anything they wanted in these bubbles. And the really fascinating thing was how many of them involved some kind of judgment. So I'll just read this one to you.
It's a harsh world.
So the mum on the left says, "My Adam knows his ABCs in English and Spanish. He can read and count to 100 too." And the other mum says, "Wow, that's amazing. What an accomplishment." But then she's thinking, "Oh my God, when's she going to get him off the bottle?" And the other mum is thinking, "She's so full of it." And actually, we were just fascinated by how many of the mums seem to relate this judgment from mum to mum. And I think whilst this kind of thing has probably always existed, actually technology is kind of turbocharging some of this judgment, because now there's just an explosion of opinion in terms of what is the best strategy for being a good mum. And actually, it's never been easier to measure your achievements against those of other mums as well. So I'm just kind of throwing this out there as a point of view on kind of joined versus judged and the role of technology. But I think really the brand opportunity here is to create safe, non-judgmental environments for mums to support each other and share advice. The third theme, which I thought was interesting from our focus groups, were just broadly speaking the kind of love-hate technology relationship that mums have with technology, or good versus evil, as I've called it here. So what's the good side? Technology has just become such an intrinsic tool for mums. We know they're leading the charge when it comes to using smartphones for shopping and things like that. It's made their life substantially easier. They did all of their Christmas shopping online. It's introduced so many efficiencies into their lives. The fact that you can go into a shop, scan a barcode, compare prices, get access to better deals and promotions. And also it's maximized their lives. I love this quotation that says, to have everything, all this accessibility on a phone is awesome for mums. We don't have a spare minute. They need to wring as much value out of every single minute in the day, and technology is enabling to do that. It's also unleashing more creativity. You can look up recipes online, you can look up, fun activities to do with your kids in the local area, and not just for you, but for your children as well. Educational opportunities via technology, incredibly positive. But what's the other side of the coin? Actually, technology has introduced all of these new questions for mums. How do I keep up with it financially? One of the mums in our group said, "My 4-year-old has just asked me for an iPad for Christmas. What do I do with that? That's such a big investment, for such a young child." And also the big question, how do my kids have a normal childhood without falling behind technologically? So on the one hand, I don't want my child staring at a screen all day. I want them to have the kind of childhood I had. I want them to go outside and talk to other human beings. On the other hand, if I don't let them use technology and then they go to school and they're behind all the other children because they don't know how to use technology, then I'm worried about that scenario too. So, that's a kind of a difficult quandary for mums at the moment. And also from a personal point of view, am I personally spending too long looking at a screen? Am I addicted to technology? And what information should I pay attention to on the internet when it comes to being a good mum? So really the brand opportunity here is helping mums to effectively navigate the technology tightrope. And then finally, what mums really want, the power of patience. We did a kind of fun exercise in our groups, and we said to mums, if there was an awards show that was just for mums, what would the awards be? And here's just a selection of them. So best supporting mum, most organised mum, most patient mum, most stylish mum, and best juggler. I think some of those issues go back to the sort of perennial things for modern mums. How do you balance being a mother with a career? So the best juggler and most organised. Not just organising your own life, but organising the life of your children as well. As the mum says there, I spend so much time managing my kids' social calendar. It's all extremely structured to me now. But the kind of key award, the one that was consistent across all the groups, was this notion of the most patient mum. And I think really that's an insight about the fact that we live in this kind of incredibly fast-paced, real-time world where actually it's pretty hard to be patient these days. So that's mums saying, if you can achieve patience as a mum, then that's an amazing achievement. So in terms of, and this is my final section, by the way, brand opportunity really is about thinking about those values that mums really value in themselves and offering tools and strategies to help them achieve that. We did another exercise in our groups, which was, we said to mums, if you could design apps, anything you like, total fantasy apps, what would you come up with? And here's just a selection. So strategies for making more time. This is the Time Shrink app. Potentially also going to allow you to travel back in time to sort of change things to allow you to have more time in the future. Patience in a world where it's increasingly rare. I love the Sensitive Man app, which would help you to be more patient. The Give Me My Life Back app. So this is, again, allowing mum to have more time for herself. And then finally, tools just help that help her to be the mum that she wants to be. So I love the kind of Dr. Mum app. They're talking about things like using an iPhone to actually gauge the temperature of a child's forehead. But I have no idea whether that's possible. But again, just kind of really fun apps from mums who want to use technology to make their lives easier and make their lives better. But anyway, that was my whistle-stop tour of our qual research that we did last year. It's actually a precursor to a much bigger piece of research we're doing in Q1 this year, which will be available in April. So look out for that.
Great. We'll make sure everybody hears about the final report. It makes me want to talk to my 2-year-old a little bit because she was teaching me how to use an app the other day. All right, just kidding. All right, so let's dig into now. I think we definitely have a panel of Laura's Uber mom mavens here. So I want to talk to you guys about how did you create your Maven Mom brand? Because all three of you are on this panel, and I'm sure many of the folks in this audience are familiar with your brands. You've all managed to create very big and successful mom blogger brands. So can you tell me, just going down the line, how did you create your brand? We can start with you, Stacy.
Well, I actually, really unexpectedly, I think that I started actually as a lawyer at Harvard Law School, just to show you how far I've come. That's a good ending. It's good to walk away from the law. And then I wrote 4 parenting books for Simon & Schuster. And I started doing a lot of national TV, and I still do. And what I realized is all this effort I had put into building a platform and connecting with an audience, with the rise of very inexpensive technology, you could be a mom on your porch in San Francisco or in your family room in Iowa, and for $10, you could build a platform without, like me, having to go to Simon & Schuster or speaking to parenting groups. And the ubiquitousness of this technology, all of a sudden, and it's so funny to me when bloggers want to write books, I'm like, are you kidding? Don't you want to blog? And also with the convergence of a recommendation culture, we're really going through a marketing paradigm shift. I really focused Mom Central as a brand that started off focused on parenting and on what moms need to know and sort of collective, but very smart advice, and then morphed it into a brand and into blogging because of the changing demographics within the mom universe and this ability within recommendations of having first-person advocacy and of the rise within all of this of technology, both as a front to support it. And also, for example, I went on CNN in November to talk about texting versus turkey, how kids are showing up at family events and we can't get them out of what I think of as electronic cocoons. And so we're sort of in that mixture of raising digital natives. And so that all this confluence of things led me to focus on my brand, and I get to do a lot of writing. I really am a techie at heart, but I also get to work with about 300 different brands a year on how to engage in social media. And so I think that's my pathway to build a brand is really a reflection of the change over the past 12 years that's swept through the mom demographic.
Beth?
Well, I started out as a senior manager at Deloitte. I was managing technology projects, and then I became a mom. First son, and then I had twins, and I realized, well, I think I'm going to jump off the partner track. So being a stay-at-home mom, I wanted to stay involved in technology, so I got involved in blogging. This was like 2004, 2005, actually, where a lot of us got involved. And so I started blogging, and I was part of the co-founders of Silicon Valley Mom Group, which was hyper-local mom blogs, and we sold that to Technorati. At the same time, I was building my personal brand, which I'm sure all the mom mavens here understand that when you're online, you need to also build your personal brand because you want to interact with your community. And the thing I say is you need to have a niche. So my niche was technology. And so I started blogging about family technology because I thought that was such an important area that there's so much technology that families need to use now. I mean, this is not like nice. This families need to use technology. So that's what I focus on, is covering family technology. And it's been a great niche.
Rebecca?
I don't have a niche, no. I actually, I was a writer, I was a copywriter and marketing consultant for a long time, and then I was a fiction writer for a long time. And I had twins, like Beth, like 8 bazillion women in the world, and was looking for a way to get back into writing. And at that time, had someone say to me, you should start writing for this NYC Moms blog, which was part of Silicon Valley Moms, and started blogging thinking no one would read it except for my grandmother. And shockingly, more and more people started reading it, mostly focusing on New York City and raising children in New York City. And sort of as I started writing again, my marketing brain kicked in again. And from there, was really fortunate to meet a group of incredibly smart, talented women through Silicon Valley Moms, 3 of whom became my co-hosts on a podcast we started called The Blogging Angels, where we actually talk to other mom bloggers and to PR companies about how mom bloggers work with brands. It's a weekly podcast. While that was going on, I was working more and more with brands. And when you're a mom blogger, you get approached a lot by brands to review children's products. And I am not a review blogger. I don't like reviewing products. And I particularly didn't want to be playing video games all the time or reviewing them. But my twin daughters were more than happy to review as many video games as I could ply them with. So I had this idea that we needed a site for kids under 13 who are legally not allowed to be on Facebook and YouTube, to be able to review products and have a say in all the stuff that's being thrown at them all the time. And my co-founder, Nancy Friedman, likes to say there's nothing creepier than a 40-year-old man reviewing Barbie. And it's true. But a 7-year-old girl can really tell you all about Barbie. So we started this site. It's a COPPA-compliant, completely private, user-generated video site called Kids Views for kids under 13 to create video reviews of the things they love: movies, books, tech, toys, food, travel. And from that's been great. So I sort of have ended up in this education children's place, and really focusing on tech for kids in an empowering way instead of this sort of scary way that we all talk about tech and kids.
Well, can I ask you guys a question? So the product reviews thing and how you actually work with brands. So how does that work? A brand, reaches you because they've read stuff you've written, and then they say, can you review this and we'll give you $10? I mean, how does this work, and what are the rules around this for authenticity? Like, do people know you've been paid? How does this space work? Any of you?
Oh, well, I'll start off. I think the first thing is I suggest, or I say, is keep in mind is the first thing you always have. You always report to your audience. Those are the most important people. So the only way you accept a review is if it's relevant to your audience. And sometimes we get really weird pitches that are not relevant. Like I cover technology, and I'm getting pitches, for like weird fashion things that don't relate to me. So so it needs to be relevant to the audience. But then when you get a pitch, if most of the time I say it's editorial. There's an editorial relationship and a sponsor relationship. And if it's relevant to my audience, I always want to cover it. There's no money involved in that. But sometimes you do have opportunities to have sponsored posts, and you need to disclose that to your audience. And as long as you disclose it, and if it's relevant, then you're kind of complying with the rules. What do you?
Yeah, like I said before, I don't do a lot of reviews, but I do a lot of experiential writing. So if I have a product that I know I'm really passionate about, I will write about it, whether I'm being paid or not. A lot of times you will write about things, and then the brand will approach you and say, we see you're an authentic fan of their brand, and you can write really well, and you're going to tell everyone about it. In that case, I absolutely charge, and it ain't $10. Tell everyone that right now. $10 isn't going to cut it for most mom bloggers. And I think there is a weird perception out there that, I don't know, I guess it's a balance brands have to make, that are bloggers journalists and therefore shouldn't be paid for reviews, or are they something else? And I firmly believe there's something else, because journalists are being paid by a publication to review. They are still getting paid by someone. And I think anyone who has worked in the magazine industry and was a freelance writer for a long time knows that everyone at those magazines is getting a ton of free stuff. I mean, you walk into the offices of Vogue and there's not a girl in there who's paid for a handbag in 10 years. So I think as long as you are disclosing and your audience is very aware of the fact that you're being paid, you're very upfront about it. And you have to be authentic to your blog. And it's like Beth said, I'm not going to review a car seat. I have no interest in that. And neither would my readers. So I think you just have to be true to your blog and what it is and just keep being honest.
And what I would add to that is that I think that blogs overall tend to move between editorial and advocacy. And the one thing that keeps people really honest and authentic is that if you really seem co-opted, you're going to lose audience, and if you lose audience, then you lose sort of the traction and attractiveness of a review. And so there are times where I will review something because I'm just passionate about it. I went over to the Mophie booth. I love the way they can charge the iPhone. I'm just passionate. I will review it, I'll review product. And there are other times where it depends on what somebody's asking you to do. And what I think of it is brands are being asked to engage in relationship building. And part of that is what I always think of and our team thinks of, an alchemy of give-get. So sometimes the get is that you just love something and you're happy to we review tons of products on Mom Central because we just, from an editorial focus, love them. And sometimes, let's say a company wants you to really dive in depth in all of their product line. Well, then Panasonic asked me to be part of the Living in HD families. And so I did get about $12,000 worth of equipment, but I was willing to review every last one of those equipment over a year-long period. And for me, I also do spokesperson work and media work, and so I have to be very clear about where the lines are. It's very different when American Express hires me this fall to be their back-to-school spokesperson about credit card limits, and when I'm going on to speak just as a mom expert on the Today Show. And so I think that one of the things that's really lost, and if you talk to bloggers, and I think we'll all agree, is this alchemy of give-get, which is the get worth the give? So let's say somebody gives me something that's worth $2, and I'm sort of interested in it, but not that interested. It's not going to rise as a priority, or maybe I'll get around to it, but it's just not there. Then maybe I need something else. I need something that feels of value to me because bloggers aren't on salaries. And so it really depends. And so then you'll hear the spectrum of people saying, well, if you want me to do an in-depth review based on my traffic, I would like $50, or I would like $500, or are you asking, do you want me to come into brand headquarters, which a lot of us do, to say, well, I really want to see what is your brand esprit de corps, what is your vision, how is that mapping to the messaging to moms? And so those relationships run the gamut. The FTC has made disclosures mandatory, but they're still gray about what exactly you disclose. So you might say, I received a product, but you might not say, and I received a $50 gift card along with that product. So there is disclosure, but some of that is optional. And I think that the reason that so many companies and so many brands have looked to the blogosphere is that, as we all know, you can go out and you can get a review, let's say in Parents Magazine. It might be 3 sentences long if you're lucky, and it just features the product and says cool pics for kids. But what blogging has offered is first-person advocacy and passion. And so to have somebody delve in, even if it's 3 paragraphs, but it's from their personal perspective. And what happens in our recommendation-driven culture is that the blogosphere and bloggers in this sort of toppling of new media, old media distinctions, is that getting someone who's a brand advocate to talk about you, instead of doing advertising and PR and having the impressions go down and find that passionate person, instead that passionate person, if Beth or Rebecca loves your product, then they start reaching a pyramid of their audiences, and it's all that reach is all passion driven. And when you add on multiple people talking, so you add frequency of how many times you're telling someone, did you check out that brand new product, and echo, because you're hearing it from many people, we see how much it swings us. If somebody tells you, you should check out this amazing, like I went and they have this new optic lens that you can put on your camera and change, and I thought, this is brilliant. But my telling you how cool it is and how this sort of, because phones, 91% of moms won't leave home without their phones, and it's the idea of it also being their cameras and the lens sort of accoutrements of what's going on, that's word of mouth, and that's powerful. And then when you see it, it's an endorsement driven.
I could just add, like, we're bloggers. When brands come to us, there is that editorial relationship. Like I said, we report to our audience. So if there's something that's relevant, I get a press release or a brand contacts me, of course I'm going to cover that. But the brand can I get involved in what I say, how I say it, or if I cover it at all. So that's one relationship. The second relationship kind of is related to both what Rebecca and Stacy said, is if a brand contacts you and they want something in depth, or they have this campaign they want you to cover, and they want you to give feedback on the product, you know what, you're asking them to do work, and that you should pay them for that work. And we're not talking about $10. I mean, so there's a whole, and the people that are involved in this are an amazing group, and they have a lot of amazing feedback to give. So I think that brands should also really take advantage of that, by hiring the bloggers to participate. Maybe it's beta testing, maybe it's a sponsored campaign. As long as they disclose that, then they're complying and they're being honest with their audience.
Well, I think the key thing both of you said is the word relationship, and that is where a blogger is very different than a journalist. Is that usually when a blogger, there's one thing when you get something to review and you feel great about it and you want to talk about it, but a lot of bloggers have very long-term relationships with brands. We've worked with Microsoft for 1.5 years now, and they don't pay us anymore. Like that ended, and I will still do anything for them in terms of, if it fits with my blog, but I would be happy to listen to anything they always had to say to me. And part of that is there's truly a personal relationship there now. And I think that's true for most bloggers. They don't just look at things as these one-offs and just, a revolving door of brands they work with. They're looking for people they're really passionate about, and it's people. It truly is at that level.
So can I ask you guys a question, and also to go back into Laura, some of the research that you were doing? Because I remember sitting in one of the focus groups, and most of those moms said, I don't make any money doing this. I'm doing this because I love it. So did that come up a lot for you in the research, that they weren't making any money from the writing and reviewing? And
I get this sense that there's kind of like a hierarchy of mom bloggers, and some of the bloggers that we spoke to as part of the research, they were kind of just starting out, or maybe they'd started off with a kind of personal blog, and then they were starting to develop more of a shopping blog. And there's definitely a tipping point at which it becomes more of a business proposition. So, actually initially a lot of mums don't really, they are just doing it for fun because they're really passionate about the topic. And then they start to get a sense of, well, actually I could potentially, this could be another source of income for me. And then there's the tipping point and it becomes much more of a business proposition.
And Beth, you and I got into a great conversation about where you're actually making your living as an expert. So can you talk a little bit about that, like the business of being Beth?
Well,
or TechMama, I'm sorry, but you have a brand now, and you make money doing this because obviously you're all well paid. I mean, you look like great. So I mean, they don't look like they're starving.
Only once
begging
in a while.
for.
I'm in my sweats. Usually, all of us can tell you we're in our sweats. But and I'm TechMama on Twitter, by the way. So. We were having this great discussion, but on the tipping point. But basically, there's different types of bloggers. There's bloggers that are doing this for a hobby, and then there's bloggers that are professional bloggers. And there's bloggers that make money on ad revenue. But I decided that's not necessarily my way of doing things. I go across social media platforms. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all these different social media platforms. So my value proposition is that TechMama is my brand. And I do that because I like reviewing technology, and it's part of my brand. And then I make money doing the consulting in it. And that's my business proposition, but that's not necessarily other people's. But I also have a consulting background, so that fits.
Yes. Stacy?
Well, I think that for me, it was really interesting because once I had written my books and had gotten 6-figure advances for my books, and I was probably making about $250,000 a year just as a spokesperson doing media.
I like that.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm
and
a spokesperson.
But, once I master something, I'm like, I got to figure something else. But what I realized is that for me, I wanted to combine the passion that I had about the space and also the business of it, and how it was morphing, and some big trends are really affecting the space. Like we just did a survey this past fall that showed that moms have become untethered in brand loyalties, which means it's been never easier to win or lose moms as consumers. And so recommendation culture and significant sampling or experiential recommendations can really swing people and say, well, I was a Tide family or I was a Panasonic family, but now I'm sort of open. And with the economic situation, people are more open to movement. And so for me, I really saw an opportunity not only to extend the platform I had and to keep my hands in the writing and the ongoing media and some spokesperson work, but I really used it to leverage to build out a consulting social media agency that we just made last year, the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies list in America. So now it's a multi-million-dollar company. So I guess that there are huge opportunities within it, and it really depends. And the great thing about blogging is you can bring the vision where you're at. My kids are now in their older teens, so they don't even want to talk to me. I have to unplug them from various mobile devices to get their attention. And so for me, building that into a business entity was the right time and was really available. Whereas if you have younger kids or tweens, and so I think that there's this tendency to group the bloggers all together. And what I love about Beth and Rebecca and me sharing experience is that we all come from professional backgrounds and we all have different visions of what we're trying to do, of things that motivate us. Sometimes we're motivated by making money and sometimes we're motivated just by passion. Like I'm here at CES because I love new technology. I love seeing the trends about how we want to touch screens and move across our lives so that even our refrigerators and our TVs start to act where we can have Skype on them and we can interface with them.
Tell you to stop eating, which is my favorite.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think I saw that over in Samsung. Don't open this fridge.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because Rebecca, I love what you're doing with kids' views because It did come up, Laura, in our focus groups, this fear of technology with their kids, but at the same time not wanting to fall behind, right? They were all
absolutely, yeah.
And there was this interesting love-hate kind of.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With it. So Rebecca, when you came up with kids' views, like I just love the story. Can you talk a little bit about how brands are now interacting with you now that you've actually created a safe place for kids and reaching kids, basically?
Sure. So I don't know how many people know, but I think I mentioned before, so legally children under 13 can't have a Facebook or YouTube account, but YouTube is the #1 site for kids under 13. So they're on YouTube. And they're not creating, they're consuming, and they're continually consuming. And we wanted a space where kids were going to be creators. And we have a lot of parents, in the world who are putting lots of pictures of their kids on Facebook and putting videos of their kids on YouTube. And as a parent, we all know what the privacy is on Facebook, but no one really admits what the privacy is on Facebook. Your kid is totally traceable to you, and you are totally traceable as an adult. So there is no privacy for your child. You are actively creating your child's digital footprint when you are doing that. Kids' views, they go by a username. They are completely private, and they're really cute. They've taken real ownership of it. We have kids on our site. We had one kid who did it once and introduced herself as Canadian Kid, which was her username, and now all the kids do it. So we have a whole site of kids like, I'm Glitter Girl, and I'm going to tell you about Xbox, and all these great kids. And what we realized, obviously, is in many ways we're sort of a real-time focus group because right the day after Christmas, we got so many Temple Run reviews, and we were like, what is this Temple Run? And it was an iPad app. And kids across the country who did not know each other were all playing Temple Run all of a sudden. So we as a brand, as Kids Views, can then take those Temple Run reviews and put them on the Temple Run Facebook page because they're completely anonymous. There's no names attached to these kids. There's no location. There's nothing. And get this great response from the brand. And what we started to realize, and we start to hear from brands, we didn't even go out to brands, is that they would say, this is our market, these kids under 13, and we want to hear from them, and we have no mechanism to hear from them. We can't reach out to them. They cannot make videos and submit videos to us on their own. So we have become a solution for these brands where we can almost white label a solution for these brands to solicit videos from kids, to get real feedback from kids, really honest feedback. We don't edit, we don't censor. As long as they don't say their names, we're good with it. And every video is moderated. Every comment is moderated. Nothing goes up unless it's watched by our team. So we become the safe, COPPA-compliant mechanism for brands to hear from their users. And it's really exciting for brands because they're sort of in this vacuum, or we've heard from brands who said, we get all this unsolicited video and we can't use it. Like, what are we supposed to do with this now? We can see these kids are 9 years old, 10 years old. We can't do anything with them. And through us, they can. They then have permission. We have all the parental emails. We can reach out to parents. We did a campaign where a brand wanted 10 really articulate, great fun girls who are into fashion, and we could see from our site who those users were. So we reached out to their parents, who all said, "Great, my kid's going to get free clothes," and basically did these fashion haul videos, and they're adorable. We have these 9, 10-year-old girls who are just showing off their fashion haul from this website, and they're so much better than anything that brand could have made commercial-wise. And other kids love to watch kids. So we get adults who watch our site and they're like, "They're not that interesting," and I'm like, "Really?" Because we have kids, our average time on site is over 11 minutes. We have kids watching 8, 9, 10 videos on our site. So kids, that's what they love, and brands want to be where the kids are.
Do you want to say something, Beth?
Well, I just wanted to say also a little bit about we're a lot of us are here at CES, and my focus is a tech blogger. I'm here editorially to cover CES. Now, interesting, bring in the brands. A lot of us need to make a living, and so there are ways that we are sponsored. And one way, for this CES, Qualcomm and 3M, I did a project with Tech for Moms, who's in the audience, is they sponsor you for projects. Now, that's completely separate from your coverage of CES, and that's the way you really keep it clean, but at the same time, you have this opportunity to work with brands and learn about their products. And just close.
Stacy, did you want to add to that?
No, I think that's good.
Laura, can you talk a little bit about, because we were asking the moms how they felt about their kids using the tech, and then was it okay to leave them alone with some of it? And can you talk a little bit about what you heard from them about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely an extension of that kind of love-hate theme that I was talking about earlier in, actually leaving your child with an iPad doing something educational is much more like a babysitter that you can actually trust versus leaving your kid in front of the television, because you feel like they're doing something interactive, they're doing something potentially educational, so you feel more positive about that. But at the same time, the big question for mums is how much is too much? And what's that balancing act between making sure that they totally understand how to use technology so they're not behind their peers, but they're not using it too much? I think that's the real challenge for
what do
mums.
you ladies think? What do you ladies think moms are looking for in technology as they navigate their life? If I'm a tech brand, how do I connect with moms? And maybe some of you are reviewing those types of products, and probably you're just reviewing just general audience products. And I'm just wondering, have you noticed any trends in what moms, kids, families need from their technology?
I think there's a lot of guilt around technology when it comes to family, whether it's parents feeling guilty that they are, and certainly mom bloggers always feel guilty because we're always on Twitter. I'm like screaming at my kid to get off the computer, and I'm sitting here tweeting. And I don't know what it is, but I think people are acknowledging that they're all spending too much time behind a screen. I don't know when it became the norm for kids to sit on an iPad at dinner, but I mean, I was out to dinner in restaurants, and I mean, it must have been 60% of the kids were all sitting there on an iPad, and it's awful. I mean, I truly do think it's awful, and I think there's a really responsible, great way for kids to learn about tech, and I think parents are looking for that. I think parents want guidelines. They want to feel like, how can I connect? And the parents, again, are just the dad's on his BlackBerry, the mom's on the iPhone, and I've heard from parents who will say, like, just give me a simple tip. And someone the other day said to me, the best thing you can do is put a basket by your front door, and everyone's tech goes in that basket when you come home.
You're getting very close to my own life right now, I want you to know. So, Beth, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big division right now that's going on, is that, as parents, we're just trying to keep up and learn about this technology, or some of us are kind of early adopters and using it, but the kids are naturally adopting. I have a 13-year-old, let me tell you, who's just on Facebook, and he knows technology better than me. So you have the kids that are naturally using technology. So I say, just accept it. Like, I just tell people, parents, you need to educate yourselves and then educate your kids, and then have the dialogue. I say this, technology is the new sex talk. Seriously, technology is a new sex talk. You need to learn about the technology. Great. You need to have that talk and have an open communication with your kids. And that's what I say. It's like you really can't stop it from happening. It's here.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Although the sex talk app would be great.
Yeah. Do you want to add to it?
That's a good way for them to learn about technology.
I think that
business models, ladies and gentlemen. Business models.
I think some trends are converging. One thing is that just the consumer footprint of moms has shifted dramatically in the past couple years. It used to be that just like used car situations or going to a car dealership, we would like grab our husbands and say, can you just go negotiate for a phone, computer? Now we just walk in and say, okay. And in fact, if anything, we're holding our kids at bay. Don't listen to them about the text messaging plan they want. Just focus on me. So that moms really have become tech forward. We are carrying at all times cell phones, mobile devices, if anything, tablets really appeal to us. And we're downloading and changing applications sort of like Kleenex. And the other thing that crosses over is that we are raising definitely a generation of digital natives. This is what they do. They live in a virtual rec room. My kids would rather Facebook their friends than pick up the phone. Like the phone is really interestingly obsolete. They use their phones to text, not to talk. Right. And so continually, the themes that run through this is that today's parents have to manage digital natives. So unlike what David said, I don't think you can let your kids plug in 24/7. I did a CBS Early Show segment where this girl was there because she had texted 40,000 times in a month. And her parents were like, we're so proud, she's going to Harvard. And I'm like, she is so screwed. She's going to need psychotherapy while she's at Harvard to deal with this. And so I think that the two issues that come up again and again in the mom space are trust. How do you build brand equity? And how do you get people to trust that you have this sort of safeguards for kids in mind? How do you build trust? And the second is permission-based sort of, how do you get people to get over the guilt feeling so that the huge rise right now is in moms and casual gaming, biggest demographic coming on. And why? I think it's because we have 5-10 minutes at a time, you know, and so, but it's a guilty pleasure. So how do you bring that out? And how do you get that into the dialogue stream? And so I think that those permission and trust in terms of looking at brand equity and also in terms of parents looking at their own relationship. It's very hard, you know, you see moms at the playground, they're like, you know, like you have to put down, you know, your electronic toys, go play. And then they're sitting there texting friends. So we all of us in this room have trouble managing our technical lives and this digital imprint of our own.
So, Beth, I'm sorry, Stacy, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure, because we're running out of time, that we get to the audience if there's any questions, because we do have such amazing talent up here on the panel. So, gentleman with the sunglasses, very Hollywood of you.
Ladies, I've been working nearly a generation with families and very, very many mothers usually starting out in the business space with their husbands, end up coming home and pretty much living with the families. And I actually am the person who gives a lot of the sex talks, per se. It's a great phrase. Laura, you pointed out something that was very familiar to me, and that is that the type of mother who really wants to get the award is the patient mother. And there are probably, I would guess, maybe fewer mothers that would award themselves that than any number of the other categories. As you ladies deal with your communities, do you find people reaching for that ring of sensibility that they're looking to release their technologies and get balancing behavior and sensibilities? Do you have that type of an energy, or do you typically see the vortex generally positive of the technologies pulling people really quickly past that, and they end up dealing with the repercussions of moving so quickly forward? Thank you.
That's such an interesting question. You know, there's a lot of things that swirl around moms in this space. There's a lot of pressure put on moms to be the regulator of their children's technology. The judging thing, which came up in this group, is always true. I mean, we did a Twitter party with Redbook where it was no judgment day, and it was just all these moms tweeting like these horrible confessions, you know, and mine was like, I'm counting the days till sleepaway camp, right? And so I think that technology in that sharing, it can be very positive, and it's sort of like everyone's joking around, but they're releasing that sort of tension and that judgment out into that space. And as bloggers, we certainly get a lot of trolls who are releasing their own weird stuff in that space. I think there's a lot of positivity. I do think, in the most part, people want to share and connect online, and they're trying to figure out a way to do that that enhances their real life, right, and doesn't take away from their real life. And that is the balance, and it's hard. I mean, we're the first generation of parents living through it, and our kids are I mean, I feel so bad for kids now. I really do. I feel like they can't make a mistake, right? You just make a mistake. You used to be that's part of being a kid, and now it's on Facebook. And you're just like, I don't know. Our kids are kind of digital natives, but I actually hate that term because I think just because they can use all the iPads, that's Apple's credit, that the iPad's so easy to use. Our kids get it, but they really don't. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing when they email. They send all the chain emails. They're like 80-years. You're like, really? You send they don't know what they're doing. So I don't know.
But I think that CES, a hot trend is this whole convergence now, where there's better places where you can get the content, and there's also everything's wireless, and now everything's in the palm of your hand, right? A smartphone, a tablet, and a laptop, and you're set. So there's a lot more learning that needs to go on. At the same time, it can make your life easier, but it was really hard to use for a long time, but I think it's getting easier, don't you think? I think it's getting easier to use that technology, but you need to find out how to use it, and that's what we're trying to do, is help that process.
Another question? One more question.
Are any of you concerned that the commercialization of the mommy blogging world will result in a lot of mommy bloggers losing credibility? I mean, as a marketer now, I can go to one of several different mommy blogging agencies and pay to have 50 prominent mommy bloggers write a good product review, and they will tell me how much that cost. Are regular moms who are reading blogs eventually going to catch on to this and stop trusting such product reviews?
Wow, that's for you, Stacy.
Yeah. I think that,
Wow.
I think there's an inherent bias in the way you frame that, but I think that I think that ultimately, let me speak for what our group does at Mom Central. We're looking to launch brand advocates, and we go through a lot of hoops to try, getting back to this, what I call the alchemy of give-get, not to give too much to get people to do something that they're like suddenly, I love that. You really want to find people who genuinely like it. And so when you go out and you're seeking people, let's say we go out and we're running a mom blog tour, we're seeking people, we're really asking them, first of all, we're watching longitudinally what they review and what their editorial focus is and the depth of that over now 4 or 5 year period. But also what you're doing is asking people to tell you genuinely how that connects to their lives. And so I think that in any space, you run the risk of commercialism. I remember speaking at a travel panel, and there was a guy who covered travel for the New York Times, and it turned out that he was taking very expensive trips and getting bottles of wine. It actually kicked him off the Today Show as a reporter. And so I think that in any space, you risk commercialization. And because mom blogs are rising to prominence and people are looking to make living, some people are. I mean, people write, they're journal writers, there are review writers, there's a lot of different. I think that the thing that keeps the space honest is that if you just are sort of a pay-to-play blogger, and there are definitely people out there, I mean, there are people out there that will do that, what happens is they just lose foot traffic. And so because people read it, just like all of us go on Amazon. We don't know who wrote it, but based on the persuasiveness of the voice and the way in which they write, we make a credibility judgment of whether or not they sound like us and we value their review of a book. And so I think that even more so when people know people's background, what the balance in the system against this so-called commercialism is that if people are bought for, it shows in their writing, it shows in their repeat perspective, and they just don't have audience. And if they don't have audience, then brands really don't want them because they're only speaking to Rebecca's grandmother.
Yeah, and my grandmother was awesome. I will say, she's 95, she is. Oh, okay. I was just going to say, don't hire that. Hire Stacy's great, but don't hire the company if that's what you feel like you're getting. Like, do a little legwork on your own and read some blogs.
Yeah, reputation is everything. You need an honest voice, or else
That's it.
you lose your audience. So.
I agree.
And I'd encourage everyone out there to follow our fabulous mom bloggers, and they're all great writers. And for more information about Truth Central, you can get a hold of Laura's report. Thank you.